Approaching new connections can feel intimidating, but confidence grows with preparation and practice. A clear introduction, strong posture, and active listening set the stage for meaningful conversations. First impressions matter. Tone, eye contact, and body language influence how interactions unfold. Active listening goes beyond hearing words. It includes responding with thoughtful follow-up questions, observing nonverbal cues, and demonstrating engagement. Asking open-ended questions encourages deeper discussions and builds stronger connections. Networking is not just about receiving, it's about offering value. Sharing relevant insights, making introductions, and supporting others without immediate expectations strengthens relationships. Thoughtful follow-ups reinforce connections, showing genuine interest. Cultural differences shape communication styles, making awareness essential for respectful interactions. Whether in person or online, the key is consistency. Regular check-ins, shared insights, and celebrating others' successes turn brief introductions into long-term professional relationships.
So in the previous segment, we established elevator pitch is not so good. Susan, you often speak about leaning into the greeting. What are the subtle body language cues that make a big difference?
Well, I'll address that, but I'd want to say to our audience, body language is not a science. So, but it gives us a hint. When we lean in to a greeting, and by the way, during the pandemic, I said, please don't shake hands. Now we're back to doing that. When we lean into a greeting, we're extending ourselves and actually welcoming. If we greet someone like this, we don't look like we really mean the greeting. So leaning in is something that's really important. And when you go to exit, you don't lean in. You just stand, because leaning in has a different meaning. One of the things that I think about is that we have made networking a pariah. And by the way, I know a lot of really dirty, bad words, really, and I say them all the time, and networking's not one of them. I won't give you examples of ones that are. So I think when people, and the people who are negative on networking forget that, and I did write this as a tweet and post, all the people bad-mouthing networking are always happy when they are the recipient of information, leads, advice, referrals, etc.
Kelly, you stress the importance of active listening. How do you stay fully present and engage in conversations? I know that if I'm in a room, how do you resist looking around the room or thinking about what you should say next?
It's hard. It's hard because I think we all think we're good at, listening, but what we're really good is at hearing. And the best thing you can do in terms of making a connection is to be fully present. I think it goes to what Matthew said before, understanding why you're in the room in the first place. Why are you choosing to devote your time and energy in a particular way? I think it's opening yourself to be curious and interested. And you sort of get all these combination of factors. But if you know why you're in the room and why you want to be why you're looking to engage with people there, right? This is where you've got a conversation starter. This is where you sort of think, oh, I don't need to think about what am I going to say next? What am I going to say next? Let me just hear what this person has to say. And from there, we'll be able to pull threads and see where it goes. So, I think active listening is one of the most difficult and most important skills you can work on. And it's not a part of networking that people prioritize because we've been so fixated on how do we polish up our elevator pitch, and what's the right way to do this and what's the right way to do that. And it's like, why don't you just listen? Why don't you just listen and see where it goes?
Matthew, I love the preliminary work that you do ahead of an event, finding people on LinkedIn, trying to connect, doing some research. It really helps to build, I think, your confidence. And then when you have an interaction with that person, it's like you got a head start. Do you have favorite go-to conversation starters or techniques that turn the small talk into something more meaningful?
Yeah, absolutely. And just so everyone's aware, I mean, when I go into a networking room, because I haven't just connected with people, they've responded. So now most people don't know this. And if you don't, this is by far one of the best features in the world, especially for sales, to get those people that have ghosted you to come back to the table. And just like introverts are great at, lead with empathy when you do this, but you can actually send audio messages from LinkedIn now through your iPhone or your Android phone. And people always respond really for one of two reasons. One is because they want to respond, or the other is they want to know how you did that. And because of that, you can actually get people engaged. So what I will do is I'll connect with people, but then I will send them an audio message and I'll start the dialogue before we even get there. So they've seen my face a few times. I've seen their face a few times. So when I get there, it's really easy. I'll literally walk into a room and I will see somebody's face that I recognize. And the moment that I start the dialogue, they'll be, Matt, I can't believe you reached out to me on LinkedIn beforehand. I should do that more. It's really easy. I don't really need to do any work. Now, I will say that, I interviewed Ivan Meisner on my podcast. He's the founder of BNI. And he's a really good friend of mine. Every time I go back to Austin, I get a chance to go to his house. And he talks about open pairs, and he goes into detail on it. So I won't waste everybody's time on it today, but I would really suggest go to the Introverts Edge podcast and watch him kind of break down exactly what you should do. But he also highlighted that what you would consider the best skills, he did a survey for all the BNI network, and the best skills, or the things that people appreciate most from networking, wasn't the big bravado personalities, it was far more the person that actually listened and paid, more importantly, wasn't thinking about what to say next, but actually listened to what you said and asked follow-on questions. Now, I do want to be clear, because a lot of people, when somebody asks them what they do, respond in a different way. They don't answer the question. They don't talk about their functional skill. They don't deliver an elevator pitch. They think they're being clever, and they say, oh, I just start asking them more questions. I'm like, oh, that's great. Everybody wants to be interrogated the moment they meet you. It's not the answer that they should focus. It's not what you should focus on. I think that what most people need to do is they need to be interested first, but if they haven't done the homework beforehand, then they're making it much harder on themselves when they walk into the networking room. I honestly, when I walk into a room, I always recognize a face. I literally will walk in, and the first thing that I do is I slow walk to the bar. If I don't see someone I meet, someone I know, I then start to slow walk to the restroom. And then and this happens maybe 5% of the time, I haven't seen someone, I will imagine that I've left something in my car, and I'll go back outside quickly. Now, I don't get in the car and I drive away. I've got to remind myself to turn around and go back. But then when I'll slow walk back in, I will run into someone. Now, when I'm doing that, I'm casually looking to the left, I'm casually looking to the right. But usually I don't have to do any of that. I walk in, and because of the dialogues I've had before, I'm always straight into a conversation with somebody I've met. But if I do meet someone that I don't know, I do ask them what they do, because everybody likes to talk about that. And then I start thinking about people in my network that might be helpful to them. So instead of asking questions and listening to the answers to ask more questions, I'm actually listening to think about who in my network would be really helpful for them to meet. And it might be a podcaster that I know that they would really do well on that person's podcast, or it might be someone I know who's part of an association. And the rule of thumb that I have is, if I think about 3 introductions that the person, if I've randomly met someone that might be valuable, I'll offer the first one. And then I'll keep talking, and then I'll offer the second one. And by the time I'm thinking about, I want to hold back the third. And the reason why I hold it back is, if they don't offer an introduction or a suggestion at that point, I may not offer the third. But if they offer if they offer an introduction, I will then offer the third. And then the moment I leave, I will send 2 of those introductions, but not the third. And then I'll wait a week or 2 and send the third one. And what I'm trying to do is I'm prompting them that sometimes they forget. And I want to make sure that they send the introduction. And I don't want to say, hey, dude, you promised me an introduction. So the third, a couple of weeks later, gets them to go, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I got 2 introductions from you before. I didn't do it. Let me do it now. And it makes sure that I get that meaningful introduction that would be really helpful to me. So I find that by thinking about who would be valuable to them by listening to them, it allows me to really be an asset to them from day one.
David, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think building on what Kelly was sharing earlier, I was thinking about how it's so easy to be distracted. And so it made me start thinking about my meditation practice. And I've talked about networking as a form of kind of conversational meditation, right? It's hard enough to be alone with our own thoughts without getting lost in thoughts and getting distracted, but to talk to someone else and to be actively listening to them without getting lost in thought, also pretty hard. So I kind of look at it like meditation. In the same way, when I notice my thoughts are drifting, just gently bring myself back to the person, bring my attention back, and just practice, right? It's being present is a practice. And I agree that presence is what's really important. For me, I don't want to come with too much of like a plan or an agenda or a framework for how I want to network with someone, or else I'm going to come across really, just in my experience, inauthentically, like way too practiced. So what I find is if I could just really be present, I can follow the natural energy of a conversation, figure out what am I genuinely curious about, not something to get an opportunity, not like the right one-liner to make a connection, but like, what did I hear this person say that I have a genuine curiosity about? Then I can follow that. And the same thing applies to who I'm talking to. So I find that like if I'm going into an event and I'm trying to talk to everybody and like optimize all of these connections, I'm going to get exhausted. It's probably not going to work. But what I'll do is try to have a number of conversations until I meet someone where there's a very authentic, energetic connection. Like I actually want to talk to this person. I'm actually curious. Then the conversation becomes much easier because again, I'm just following the natural energy of the people around me and the conversation, and I let it flow naturally rather than trying to manufacture something that isn't naturally occurring for me. That's how I think about it.
Go
Can
ahead.
I just say, I love that. I might have to credit you with that. There's no such thing as manufactured mingling.
Yeah.
And I would say
you can
this
have that one. You could have manufacturing.
I know I'm
That's
going
a
to
good
quote
one.
you because that's a skill of networkers. We always attribute and acknowledge. But the other thing, what you said about agenda, everyone that you've ever met that has an agenda, it's as if it's written on their forehead. Their behavior supports that they have an agenda. So I'm 100% with you. Adjust who you are for the audience. You don't talk to a 4-year-old the way you talk to a 40-year-old.
Right.
But being more organic, I think, has attributes.
Wanted to just, if I can, Andy, when we're starting this off talking about listening and active listening, I think if anybody would be sort of the expert on this panel on that, it's got to be David with community building. Because if you're not listening to the community, right? I think of Tina Roth Eisenberg, the founder of Creative Mornings, who I interviewed in my book, Build Your Dream Network. As she said, the most important layer of building that successful global network, that community, was listening to the bottom layer, who are the volunteers, and protecting and guarding who they are before she took sponsorship, before she went as a business model, because without listening to them, the whole thing crumbled. But David, I see you nodding there, so maybe I've hit the right tone. But without listening, there is no community.
Yeah, I'm also a member of the Tina Roth Eisenberg fan club. So yeah, she's amazing.
Well, I love the idea that when you have a community, you can build trust at scale. One quick question for David: when you run a community, do you ever struggle with the feeling that everybody knows you by name, but you don't know everybody?
Like the Norm
Like
Peterson.
that's a little bit of a struggle, right? Sometimes.
Yeah. So yeah, we're talking about like the parasocial relationship that's very common in this internet age, right? It happens for community builders where you're kind of the facilitator, happens for content creators, anyone on a stage, anytime where there's people who are consuming a lot from you and really feel like they get to know you really well. but you don't have that same reciprocal familiarity with them. And it's hard, right? I try to just be honest. One little thing that I do is just say nice to see you instead of nice to meet you, just in case we've met before. And yeah, I just try to be honest. If they're like, oh, we've met before, I might just say like, I'm sorry, I don't remember, but I'd love to get to know more about you now, and just use it as an opportunity to open up the conversation.
So honesty is often the best policy. Let's go on to segment 3.